All right, when Twyla comes back in, we're good to go. We're gonna start with the awarding of the two bids for Ryan for the culverts and excavation. We're gonna dispense with pledge and move.
Okay, did you want to do roll call?
Please.
All right. Counselor Albert?
Here.
Counselor Colby? Here. Counselor Crawford, will he be coming?
He is excused.
Counselor Lunt?
Here.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Kraus?
I have not heard.
And Counselor Brunel?
Here.
Okay. And the first item is, under council orders, ordinances, and resolutions, Order 2017-109, award culvert bid.
In your packet should be a memo along with the proposals that we received from the various pipe suppliers. I was a little bit surprised that we had some fluctuation in price. HD Supply and EJP were identical, which is typical for, I mean, everything comes from basically ADS pipe, so it's state pricing. Portland Plastic Pipe and Ferguson were both very close, and a little less money, which I'm not 100% sure how that happened, but Main Custom was quite a bit lower, but it was a non-ASHTO approved product out of Canada. I did talk to Mandy Oliver a little bit about it, but it was one of those items that was enticing because it was about $10,000 less, but I prefer to stick with the DOT approved product, which is the ASHTO, and to purchase that from Ferguson Enterprises.
Any questions? I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Need a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Order passed 5-0.
I will mention that on that was what we had based on our initial footages. It may slightly.
Next item, 12.
Order 2017-110, award excavation bid.
Again, in your packet was the copy of the RFP that we emailed out and advertised on the website. We had quite a few bidders, which was really nice to see. After reviewing all the bids, it appears that ETTI is the low bidder, and we recommend moving forward with those folks to complete the ditching, base removal, all the pipe installations, and basically all that groundwork that we need to do on the roads that we're going to grind up and pave.
Yeah, we're seeing that in Lewiston too. ETTI has actually changed the nature of what they're doing. They're direct competition now.
Yep.
And less directional underground boring. So by all means, if it works for them to come in the area, they're local business.
Yep.
So I need a motion.
I'll make the motion. Second.
All in favor?
Order passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next item.
Next item is Order 2017-111, to adjourn to the budget workshop.
Absolutely. Need a motion.
Make the motion.
Second.
Got it.
All in favor?
Order passed 6-0. You're in the workshop. First item is the finance tax collector budgets.
Out of order.
You want to
We
do
have
the first?
Let's go on, let's start with the school capital improvement, because I don't think anybody's here from Western Maine Transportation. Yeah, I don't see Craig. And it's not quite 7, so when he comes in, we'll go back.
Perfect. Perfect.
So the
Come on up, Alan.
capital improvement plan was passed out to you. It's part of your packet.
Do you have a copy in front of you?
I do.
Making sure. Alan's here on behalf of trying to make the handoff for us. We see the capital improvement plan tonight, and it goes before the planning board for Thursday night. So you have before you the 5-year plan coming from the school. So any questions on content, Alan is here to answer those that you may have. Anything that's changed specifically from last year's? I know I've seen this several times throughout, but anything that comes to mind?
No, we're just starting the Phase 2 performance contract. We just had our first meeting yesterday, actually. In the next few weeks, we're going to be seeing a lot of site visits to come in and start monitoring the energy, where they think we can find the energy savings for this next contract. Other than that, there's been a few, I've updated a few of these things that I don't think is on your copy. Like there's a, on the, where are we at here? The high school. We finally installed, we have a wrestling lift. It was installed for all the wrestling mats, so they're no longer sitting on the back, out back in the, so it's a wall-mounted lift. The class of 2017 purchased water fountains for us, and so I got them installed last week in the school, in the high school. In the work completed on the grounds and practice fields. We had the new softball dugouts were rebuilt, and they were actually they're just finished last week, so them are all new. Work completed on the refurbished the softball field. I think that's on your copy. Trying to think. We did get in into the vehicles. I don't believe your copy has the new Class C school bus, which was purchased, and we actually took possession of it in March 2017. I don't believe that's on your copies. Okay, we installed a, this is under the maintenance garage. This is not on your copy also. We have an outside stairway to go upstairs on the maintenance garage, which is treacherous in the wintertime. So what we did is we installed a lift on the inside, so we no longer have to carry stuff up and down the stairs. So we installed that. I just got that done last week also. That's pretty much the updates that you folks probably do not have on your copy.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any questions that come off this for content for Alan's purposes? I'll wait just a few more seconds. I see people still reading. If not, you're on your way, sir. Everybody good? Hit the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for rearranging everything.
This year now, if you wanna go to Western Maine Transportation.
Sure.
That's cool, thank you.
I know. You like that?
I do.
Try to accommodate here.
Appreciate that very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm Craig Zerhurst with Western Maine Transportation Services, and we operate the Lisbon Connection bus service. Bringing before you our request for $40,000 for maintaining the service at the current level, and we've been asked to kind of explain what happened. There is a new formula that Maine DOT has provided us that's based on the Federal Transit Administration structure. And in order to draw down our federal funding, we actually just submitted our 5311, which is the formula grant to the FTA through the state. And it actually came to $40,303, but $40,000 stays. Good news, we're anticipating that you all will have a new low-floor 16-2 bus for the service sometime around the first of the fiscal year. We never actually know when buses show up until they're there. In the future, moving forward, any funding will also need to include probably an additional $4,500-ish that's not in this cycle for future vehicle replacement. However, as some of you may be aware, we're in the middle of a transit survey, which is, we'll talk to you more about that in May. But if the service becomes shared among towns, the actual cost for the vehicle may be somewhat less to each of the individual towns. So that's just kind of a placeholder for right now. We apologize for the increase. We wish we had something we could do to control that, but that's beyond anything we have control over. And by the way, ridership is being maintained. It's quite healthy right now.
Just read my minutes.
Sorry about that.
Which line is that in here in our discussion?
It's, 04420. It's towards the end of it's on page
That's what I thought.
16 of your worksheet. It went up from 35,000 to 40.
Right. That's the key piece that I remember the $5,000 increase over last year, so. In that regard is, that's what we're talking about for that piece, and, hearing a presentation at the county level associated with the de-evolution of that discussion that night. I'm glad to have you sitting here, because one of the things that I heard clearly from your communication is that it is, ridership is huge in our community, so anything that we can do to be able to keep that connection, I'm all for. So, any other questions on content? Go, I'd approve this budget. I need a motion. Are we good with that? 35 to 40 is what we're looking for. Everybody's cool with content, correct? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Final commercial for this. Please go to the Western Maine Transportation website, wmtsbus.org. Take the survey. Your input's needed. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Craig.
Thanks for
Appreciate
getting me in early. I really appreciate that.
All right.
Now, if we can move on to our capital improvement plan.
Cool. Who's gonna start shooting that one? Fire department?
Yeah, let's see what order this is in. Police department's first.
Good evening.
Evening, chief.
More paper shuffling.
No, thank you for your memo to go with the capital improvement plan too. I know when you did your
That as well.
budget workshop, there was a lot of discussion associated with the fleet and maintenance plan, 2 vehicles versus 1 vehicle in any given year. I know the way we left that workshop that night is we're at the list meeting discussion, talking about bringing on the second cruiser associated with that, so not to actually add more mileage to the aging fleet, if you will.
Right, thank you. Hopefully my chart made sense to you all. I tried to explain it as best as possible. I showed you the two different options of one of just what will happen if we stay with 1 car a year versus if we do the 1-2, 1-2, or 2-1, 2-1. To me, after talking to other agencies and after seeing what will happen if we just continue with 1 car annually, I think it shows the cruiser situation is going to cave in on itself if we keep it at 1.
And I'd like the key component in his analysis is stepping down cruisers from frontline to a lesser capacity, like the CID, to be able to get additional life out of them over the course of the 5-year rotation, if you will. And your intention is to actually implement that with the 2 purchases this year, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're hoping between that and our new plan that I briefly discussed, where we're just gonna have set cars for different shifts, I think. So we'll basically set officers driving different cars, I think, with those 2 options, I think we'll be able to keep everything under control fairly well.
So, just thinking with that off the model for this year, then, if you're looking to purchase 2 cars that go successfully in the future discussion, one would be traded second one, what's, one of the things that we've done periodically in the past is sent it elsewhere. And elsewhere, in this case, I think would be the code enforcement officers. His Bluesmobile needs to go. The Humvee? I don't think he's allowed to talk. Is that what you were envisioning, or what were you envisioning with the vehicles coming out of the service, I guess?
We were envisioning one being stepped down and the other traded, sold.
Right.
Given to another agency, whatever works is fine with us.
Do you think that makes sense for what we're talking, and rather than trading and upgrading Dennis's vehicle?
Yeah, I think you've got a couple of scenarios you can do. When you say step down, you mean replacing one of the CID units?
Yes.
So there's the option of the CID unit going to Dennis.
That's what I was under.
Yeah, because it's a smaller vehicle, it's not a great big, I don't think Dennis needs a big vehicle, but I think,
Either
or
one.
you could, trade that one and Dennis could have the SUV too.
I don't, the way I would look at it, it's your department, pick which
Yeah.
vehicle needs to go, and one of those that's straight out being traded or whatever.
Yeah.
If, in that regard, we can upgrade Dennis's to address
Yeah.
that need with the age on that vehicle, that would be the one that ultimately gets traded.
Fair enough.
Is that agreeable to you too?
I didn't know anything about this, but it's fine. I think
I-
one's good now, does what I need, so whatever works. Not
What-
picky.
If we're gonna get circling back to this, because, we're gonna hear about it when we start talking about the PWs. The fact is, there's a purchase from the treatment plant in that discussion as well, too. I will defer that for later discussion, but I am of the mindset to actually go through the same scenario through Ryan and actually send the vehicle to Mark from there, not pay the treatment plant for something that we can do through our general fund. So, but anything in content with what the chief's presented to be able to do this, in that regard, what he's trying to do is better balance the vehicles by phasing them in and taking them out of service and putting them in the lesser role to get the additional life out of it.
Makes sense. The only thing I wanted to add to this is that I did see something, and you probably have seen it as well, that since we seem to stick with Fords as a pretty consistent model, they just put out some new cruiser types that are supposed to be much more efficient on fuel, significant savings. I don't know if that's something you've investigated, and I know we're getting ready to purchase. I can't remember the statistics, but it was enough to make me want to make sure that I made a mental note to bring it to your attention, to say that Ford's put out some new, specifically related to law enforcement vehicles regarding fuel savings. So I just wanted to put that bug in your ear, nothing else.
It's the first I've heard of it, and I've actually been at some training with a number of other agencies, and nobody's brought it up, so I'll look into it. Thank you.
All set with chief? Moving right along. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Wanna go to the fire department next?
That was easy.
Good evening, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
I guess I'm here for any questions that may occur. We've talked about my capital improvement plan for a long time, and Lydia's done a really good job at implementing mine into the full town-wide one, so I guess.
Good job, Lydia.
It's collaborative.
I'm sorry. Mrs. Barnes and Lydia,
All of us.
everybody together, so
That's right.
Whole team.
credit where credit is due.
I'm good. I did nothing.
Just a highlight from the one that was emailed to you, the engine 7 was changed from, I think it was originally 2022,
Yes,
and it's changed to 2019.
which went with the seed that I planted last time that we had met, last couple times that we had met, saying that Engine 7's ready to start, get that process going.
Right,
So.
I remember there was one coming on next year. Wasn't there one 2 years out?
Engine 2 after that is one that can be considered again, so I guess it's just depending on what direction that you choose to go in, right? It would be how we address that, so it's that.
For placement for a 5-year plan, where would you slot it?
I would say if next budget year is Engine 7, and we go, I would like to do them back to back, which would be a year and a half in between, so they would both fall within a 5-year plan. We'd get the best value for Engine 2. Operationally, it's kind of working its way out of how our operation works now. It's just such a conglomerate of a truck that it's time to go, and let's have some resale value on it so that we're able to get something out of it. at least.
And what is the high-end ballpark cost for, and comparable for engine 2?
Same idea as.
625?
Yeah, maybe a little bit less. Because that's not gonna be basically what Engine 7 is. Engine 7, we're looking at making it somewhat, what we have for Engine 1 right now, right? Have a standard, and then because Engine 2 is doing the tanker issue, is taking care of our tanker issue also, it'll be a tanker pumper, but it'll be less of a truck as we have right now for a tanker pumper, which shouldn't run as much as a full Class A pumper.
Okay. Tank 9, did we dispose of that?
Tank 9 is in the process of being
Is it-
disposed. I actually had interest. I heard that the individual that actually refurbed the truck may have interest in it, so I'm reaching out to him to see if he does, so that he can at least be involved in the bid process when we do that. So,
And the proceeds for that are gonna go right back into the replenishment fund, or, where,
I think that's what they had talked about.
okay, I'm just looking for confirmation. And Squad 3, bring me up to speed, what the hell is that?
Squad 3 is the F-450 that we purchased in 2009, which is the utility forestry unit,
Okay,
the smaller.
okay, that's what I wasn't placing,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Easier to park that out on wires down calls than
Right.
having a pumper sitting out there for.
Right. And that is also slated for next year?
No. Squad 3 is good to go for a while.
I think, that had to do with, refurbishment.
Refurbishment,
Okay, so that's
That's what the
refurbishment.
10,000 is,
and we're gonna be,
Okay,
and that's slated for 2019.
right, okay. That explains that piece then.
that'd be 10 years old already. Wow, okay. Where's the time go? So,
How many?
we will not need $10,000 worth of work on that truck
Okay.
when it comes time to
And
refurb
then,
that truck.
but replenishment on this, replacement on this will be outside the 5-year plan too, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Any other questions of Chief? I think next year, when we get into the budget discussion, what we need to tackle is, like we talked about in the workshop format, is how we're actually gonna fund.
And tentatively, we had said that after the budget process was there, I
Right.
have a more in-depth program that we'll actually be able to spend a night and go talk about. So we'll have all the information, a lot clearer information definitely as far as we go with it.
Appreciate it. No other questions? Go, run.
Public Works next.
That's you, Ryan.
Sweeper.
It's not a sweeper. Mislabeled.
So Excel likes to consolidate my words, so I just had to expand.
And
Okay,
I'm really wordy, so it was, my version was a lot longer
I
than
had a
hers.
lot
That's
of
the sidewalk.
expanding to do.
That's the sidewalk snow blower that also is used to sweep the sidewalk, excuse me, to sweep the sidewalks as well. That was the item that had originally been in there, but based on the decisions we made about going out to bid for that service, that can be removed. It was just there because it was part of the original
Placeholder.
discussion.
Right.
I mean, at some point, it'll still need to be replaced, but if it's just gonna be a sidewalk sweeping device, then it will be considerably less expensive, and we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Right, and on your list here, you had given us in your original the workshop in January timeframe that the sweeper, as you would call it, has a need. Where did you place that?
The big sweeper, I think, fell outside of this timeframe. Originally looked at it as being a 20-year item, which may be a stretch, but that's a $200,000,
It's slated for 2026.
20
Perfect.
years from now.
Perfect, it's on here. Okay, so
Oh.
what I knew of that is we're talking 2 dump trucks in the used pickup.
Correct.
Now, your pickup coming out of service, if Mark has a need for one, is that something that could be,
That was the one we said would be either a yard
oh, yes,
Can't take a
keep
vehicle
retaining.
only if we
Ret-
even
ret-
decided to keep it around.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. I'll just elaborate on the other part of it. The reason we looked at making the swap that we discussed with the sewer department was, that particular pickup truck has a dump body insert that
Yep.
ends up being very beneficial to Mark and his operation. And we talked about selling the dump body or whatever, but it was, he
Retain
needed a
reuse.
truck too, and it was just easier, we'd just send him the whole 9 yards, and then we'd go to try to find something that was used.
The $4,000 that's in his budget, is that what you talked about on price based?
Correct.
Okay.
Your CIP plan has been updated with a note, with notes on the bottom to reflect that, so that you have that going forward.
Perfect. That looked like everything that we had talked about associated with your workshop, because that was 3.5 hours, none of us are getting back.
Agreed.
Right.
And to address another one, there is an additional chart that was not in the original one that was emailed to you that addresses the town buildings. So that
Yeah,
was
thank you,
moved.
thank you. Can you, let's go to that one now, because that was,
Every- pages
Everybody's
over.
got the updated, it starts with the Town of Lisbon letter.
which page is that, Lydia?
It's 2 past that one, I did not number the pages. I have that scheduled for next year. Right after Public Works, you have Parks and Rec, and then it's
Yep.
the town buildings.
Thank you. One of the things that's added onto this, based on the way that the revised capital improvement plan ordinance, it addresses the $25,000 threshold. Things that weren't on here would be the paving that would, falls under construction, plus an idea of the items that Ryan presented in the January timeframe to keep it on our planning horizons for what we're looking at for sizable expenditures as they come due. The only piece that we don't have here tonight, Diane is gonna get whatever we have from water in that regard as well too, because that does play, because it, having to bond it and that type of stuff, it should be part of this process as well. Any other questions of Ryan before? Thank you, sir.
No problem, thank you.
Move on to rec.
Go ahead, Mark. You're next, sir.
This will be the last one. While he's sitting up there, do you wanna just go this?
Sure, we got people who wanna see that too. Mark, we'll go right from your CIP to your budget. That way you can get that out of the way at the same time.
Sounds good.
So his pickup, is it on here, Lydia?
No, the potential purchase from the sewer department,
Right,
it is not.
that's the 2002 2500, or is that older? What would be going, I guess?
I think what is currently, they don't have one now, Rex department, and they're just using the sewer departments as they need. So the plan is to transfer that to them.
Okay, transfer, but
Yeah.
because
Oh,
it
are
comes
you
off
asking
the
which
rates
one?
associated that compensating to be able to pay for, right?
Yep.
Gonna get rid of that yellow one, aren't you?
What we're gonna do is the Parks truck is, the frame is so rusted out that we can't pull anything. We can push snow with it, but we can't pull anything.
Okay, so you have a yard truck for Beaver Park.
Right, but I don't think it'll pass another inspection. So what we're gonna do is we're going to, get rid of that, phase that one out this year.
Yep.
And pick up the sewer treatment truck with the dump body.
Yep.
And keep the rec truck that we have and have that used as part of the park. And it just won't be my vehicle. I won't have it as a vehicle for me. And we'll also keep the yellow fire truck as a yard truck because that still has some life in it. It's 1984, but it's only got like 40,000 miles on or something like that.
Yep.
But it's a standard. I wouldn't want to just put anybody in that, but it is still functional.
Okay.
And I think for at least one more year anyway.
Anybody opposed to that discussion? You'll see it in his line item, there's a $4,000 purchase for the purchase of that vehicle, so. No other questions on the CIP, Mark, we can go right to your department budget. if you want. The biggest thing for Mark's budget is you'll see Parks and Recreation, the consolidation. The combined budget's gonna play out a little bit. Anything that comes to mind going down through the list, guys? I have a list if you want, maybe I'll just roll and you guys can fold in.
Probably better approach.
Gasoline, when that folds in, is that spring related, higher on you? Because it looks like it's high compared to what you have left in the account from last year. But I don't want to cannibalize next year's budget because you haven't had spring this year too. So that's why, how much is that,
Right.
is a spring activity base?
We might have a little bit left. We're talking like a few $100s. But that is always fluctuating every year because it's based on a lot of different things. I mean, our trips, we put a lot of fuel in that bus for the seniors. And right now, we probably have 6 or 7 trips with that, so it's not an abundant amount of fuel, but I think that we could probably shave a few $100s off that.
But if I'm hearing you correctly, are we adding one to your fleet by purchasing this treatment plant? So that hasn't been a year underneath your budget either. Would that be a fair assessment?
We're gonna have, actually, the same amount of, we're gonna have one less truck.
Okay.
We're gonna have one less vehicle. But, it's hard to say. I mean, we're talking a few $100, but,
Let's do this. Can you?
are you talking about diesel or gas?
Gas.
Okay, 'cause
Not
diesel-
diesel is pretty straightforward.
And that's a journal entry that we do, so I'm not sure that everything's been posted.
Okay. I'm inclined, we'll let that ride
Yeah.
and then look at it
as we
next
get
year, this
close-
timeframe.
Or as we
You have
get
one
closer
full
to
quarter.
year
Okay,
end,
well,
we
let's,
can look
let's,
at
let's
it.
put it on the list for year-end discussion and if you make a recommendation.
But which are you looking at for the balance? Are you looking at the 321 that I gave you? Because it probably didn't even include March's purchases.
Don't quote me on that, but I was combining the two reports to be able to come up with a total and then
Okay.
comparing them, so.
Because we do the journal, it's after the month end that we do the journal entries from the usage at the gas pumps.
Okay.
So something may not have been posted, so he may.
That's fair. Based on that, if you tell us there's no recommendation for a cut, I
Yeah,
would
not
accept that at the June.
Not yet.
Right,
We'll
but
look at
put
it.
it on the list for the
Yeah.
future discussion.
And I do want to say one thing about that, is that I look at last, the combination of the two budgets, 4,000 of that is parks, $1,500 is for
Right.
recreation, so.
Right.
You know, the parks is probably the busiest it's gonna be from now until June, July, because we're getting ready, we're on the road 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, so we're probably consuming more fuel now in the next quarter.
Right. And that was kind of what I was figuring as well, too. Equipment repairs, has it been favorable this year? Again, based on the budget compared to what seemed to be left in that account.
Yes, we have been lucky this year. But the mowers,
needs?
the mowers had to have some work done on, the UTV had to have $1,500 worth of work done this spring. For equipment anyway, facilities, different story, but.
You telling me to leave it as it is?
Well, I reduced that, $3,000 already, based on the purchase of the plow last year.
Which account are you looking at?
Repair, maintenance of equipment,
5345?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at 10-7 last year. 10-7-28 last year to 10-7-28 this year, I thought. Did I not fold that correctly when I combined the two departments?
I'm looking at 4,500 for the current year, and then this year it's 10,728.
Yeah, but it's,
it's an
You-
addition of $9,300 from parks, right?
Oh, that's right,
Yeah,
yes, I'm
you
not,
gotta-
yeah,
you gotta
right.
combine the two.
And then reducing it by $3,000 for that plow we purchased for, from the fire department or whoever bought that black
Right.
truck.
Let's leave it as it is. In that regard, he's got older equipment that's come from other departments until we can actually see one-year activity with the combined accounts.
The Parks Department trucks mentioned under that same R&M equipment, that would be replacing, well, not replacing, but taking that 1984 truck out of service and basically bringing the other one over then. Still falling under that same piece, right?
Well, I think it's the 2002 we're taking out of service. The 84 we're gonna keep in for a year.
Okay.
Actually, it's probably, it's better than,
Better than the O2?
Yeah, it's the
It
Chevy
really
that's
is.
leaving.
and then the O2 is being taken out of service.
Okay. The next item would be the discussion on the recreation purchase of a vehicle. Anybody uncomfortable with that arrangement? It's what we're gonna get for a trade on it, so the fact is we can have benefit associated with it. Seeing none, moving on. Next item that actually comes to mind would be the playground. That's why we have a few folks sitting here in the audience, I'm well aware too.
5634.
Go ahead and speak on behalf of the playground, Mark.
Okay, so this is really not a replacement of a playground, only because there's really not a playground there now. There's swing sets. And when Head Start left in 2006, they left their piece of plastic slide that is sitting on top of the sand, and it's really not an effective playground. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 kids can play on it at once. But the MTM Center has grown so much since 2004. We have so many activities out there. We have a huge after-school program where every day we have 50 to 60 kids, and they're playing on the pavilion, they're playing in the sand, and they're fighting over 6 swings. And so I really believe that, you know, it's something that's well overdue. And I think that right now, from the meetings that we've been having since November, the community strongly supports it. And we're going to have a fundraising plan. As you know, you may have heard already that we've had a recent donation to help support it, and that I think that it's a win-win for everybody.
Why don't you explain what's actually, the model for what you're looking for our 20,000 for the flip side of that, just
Okay.
for the public record?
Yep. So it's going to be the nicest playground in town. It's not going to be, the most expensive.
Quite literally in this town, is what you're saying.
Here's why. Here's why. Here's why, is because the Lisbon Community School has two nice playgrounds, and they're relatively new. But they're kind of designed for the age groups that part of the school they're at. And our playground is going to be both for smaller and older kids. And I can't remember the exact size, but it's going to be in a 60 by 40 footprint. And it's pretty large, and I can't remember how many kids can play on it, but I think it's run between 50 and 60 at one time. So it's going to be substantial. It's going to take a good part of that area between where the fitness center door is, all the way to where our town Christmas tree is.
So you're coming forward.
We're going to go parallel, adjacent to Addison Street.
It's gonna be handicapped accessible?
It is. It is. But we're working right now to have some, the base is a very important part of this. And we can't go with the best base possible because that's $50,000 just for the base. It's amazing engineering that goes into that. But there is some engineered wood chips that is also handicap accessible. And we're looking at that for a much lesser cost. But it's very functional too.
One of the things that I heard, and I wanted to go ahead and make sure we get out for the public record as well, is that the actual assembly of the playground itself, I know there was talk of volunteers, just from a liability standpoint, that's something I wanted to understand from a town liability, since where we're at. If we do purchase this playground, are there stipulations that we will get someone that's actually gonna come and put the thing together, and it's gonna be rolled into the cost, or to be determined?
It's an option, but we also, both manufacturers we spoke to, they, each of them will have a representative come and work with our group to put that together, so it's safe and it's done properly.
Is there a final inspection process? I'm sure there must be, that has to be completed before any kids can play on it, that way we know everything's copacetic.
I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look into that for you,
Okay.
because I know that if they have a rep there, and they're there from start to finish, I have to think that they're gonna be making sure they're gonna, okay it before we move on.
Absolutely. Just good to hear that somebody would be boots on the ground from the, whichever group we decide to go with.
Right.
That's great.
What's our town insurance say about volunteers putting it together? Are they gonna require us?
I haven't checked, but I don't think it's gonna be a big issue. I've been involved in this before in another community where we put together, we did complete fundraising for a community playground, and it was all volunteers that put it together. It was all wood back then, because it was quite a long time ago. But it was a significant amount of volunteers. It took a whole weekend to put that whole playground up, and it was a rather large playground. But it can be done, and we didn't have any issues at the time with our insurance, but it's something I can check on.
Well, I think that if we, as Mark said, if we have boots on the ground from that, I don't think they're gonna green light anything and doesn't put their product in the best light or in the safest as well, so.
Both companies have several playgrounds in our area, in this area, that we, that are great playgrounds. Brunswick, there's a nice one, there's a great one up in Bangor, there's one in Westbrook.
Mark, you said that, I should say we got an email about somebody donating $16,000, or a family donating $16,000 to match against the 20.
Right.
Originally, you were looking for 40, it was gonna be a $40,000 set, is that what it was? And if you do that number, then you're still gonna be about $4 grand short, you're still gonna be able to pull that from somewhere to
Well,
get what you're looking for? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
We have $3,350, something like that, in a playground account already.
So you must be close then.
If I may.
Yeah, absolutely, stand right up.
PCL certainly is thrilled to be part of this project. I will say that, sorry.
Come on up and
I'll
grab
come
a
on
mic.
up. We're thrilled to be part of the project, and we are eager to move forward as soon as we get the letter we've spoken about to the council. I did note today that you signed a proclamation May 20th as Parks Day. If we get that letter before May 20th, we'd love to have a celebration of Park Day right there and use that as a fundraiser. So if we could pull that off, that'd be great. We were planning to raise $40,000. Obviously, we're planning to raise 20 of that, and hopefully you guys would support the other 20. The 16 is a huge donation. We still intend to go out and raise, because the reality is that 40,000 was our starting number, and as we add the handicap accessible attributes to this playground may get up into more than 50 range.
And what's nice about this playground is I'm sure that as time goes on, you can add to it.
We certainly can, and we intend to do more of this as a success, breed success.
We might have to cut down a town Christmas tree to do it, but.
You can move the tree, can't you?
Right.
And I just received another donation, I'm thrilled, thank you very much. And just a quick comment, PCL does insure all its volunteers, so we're already covered. If any volunteers are at that event, we'll cover them as well. So. Any other questions for me?
Nope, stay handy.
Yes. You got it, thank you.
Stay handy.
I want to add something, though, that's really important to note, that this is a process. I mean, I would love to have this done before Moxie Festival or before, as soon as but we have to go through a process. We have to go through closed bid process. That takes weeks, and we've got to be patient. And if this is funded, then that we're not home yet. We have a long way to go with the design, the finalizing of the design, and the funding part of it.
I think that the attention to the planning makes sense. I don't think any of us would subscribe to a deadline that would compromise that in any way.
Right now, Marksman, just talking concept with PCL in that regard, one of the key pieces associated, we have a bid process.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, there's a key piece that you said both. Both is in 3 bids associated with that, so just making sure that we go through the process, that's all. Discussion on this item, I know, yes, Mike?
Would this be something that we would fund out of the reserve fund rather than do a budget item? I mean, that would also allow us to fund it faster, and that we could, do it right now rather than waiting until June.
We still have to go through the proper procurement process, so.
Since it is a one-time expense,
It's
it's
a
a
one-time
great call,
expense,
Mark.
right,
It's
it's
a
not gonna
great
be a
call. I
recurring
think
expense.
a lot of us are probably thinking the same thing on that.
It's on the list for consideration. It's still in the budget, but it's on the list. If you want it to stay on the list, I can take it out of the budget,
We could go either way.
either way. But
Yeah.
it is on that list for consideration.
I think initially the idea was to make sure it was in the budget so we could see
Right.
it and account for it, but then
We can.
we still have time to talk about it, about if we were gonna go ahead and move forward, where we wanted to, pull that money from.
My recommendation would be fund balance. In that regard, it's the quickest access to it with this process and not actually raising taxes to actually build it with all the other needs that are actually out there. Use the fund balance for its intended purpose.
It meets the criteria of all the other things that we've measured for fund balance too. If we look at every other department ask that we put in there, when we've asked of other department heads, is this a one-time? And then when it has been, we've considered fund balance as the primary funding source. So I think it lines up pretty well with that as well.
All right, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
You got 3
Maybe
seconds,
Everybody's-
pick one.
Good.
I do
No, we
allow
got, I got my
to make
vote. We're
motions
not
in
voting in the
workshop.
workshop, but we
Right.
got what we need. This is
Yeah.
coming out of fund balance, is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
Didn't have very many opposed, right?
We
He
don't,
was taking a heavy, strong straw poll is what he was doing.
yeah, for our listening public, we don't vote in workshops, so in that
Yeah.
regard, everybody is okay with actually having this item come out of fund balance, and it comes off the budget.
I think it's something the town needs, and it's,
Right.
I noticed when I moved here in '92, we didn't have a good playground, and I think kids have been dealing with that ever since.
Whatever PCL needs for us, can you put that on the agenda to make that happen so they can open up their avenue for fundraising ability, the next agenda?
That being said, I can move from undesignated and earmark it to committed, or assigned,
Please.
done.
And if you're even remotely close to bids, let us know so you can get on the agenda when you need to.
I need to develop an RFP and send
Right.
that out.
Correct.
Right.
But that buys them some time to actually come up with the funding to be able to make the other, I heard 2 figures, I heard 40 and 50 in that
It'll be
regard.
closer to 50. We'll raise it.
Now, mind you,
You got 33 already, don't you?
the additional 10 comes PCL. That is their intention associated with that. They were just looking for the 20,000 commitment from the town.
That's correct.
So what we'll wanna do on the next meeting, next week, is to have you do a formal vote, to have that come from unassigned fund balance, since you can't do it in workshop. So that should be on
Right.
the agenda as well.
And we can give Ross a copy
In
of
which
that
case, that's
for
when it will be
PCL.
That's,
assigned.
that's
We'll
when
meet
you
the
do
need.
it, yeah. Alrighty.
Something for the agenda already.
Anything else on this topic, guys? I raised a couple of questions on just the revenues, Mark. When we cover revenues, we can do that. It was, you look at some of your expenditures, summer trips is up on expenses, but so is the revenue.
It is.
Just kind of looking to make sure that, you know, the dialogue you and I have had in the past, the fact is that are your revenues sustaining, or are you supplementing it out of your expenditures, if you will?
If you look at the trips that you just referred to, I think we're around $38,000 in revenues. We've expended about 36.5. So we're still, we're in the black, and that's the way that those 5,600 accounts work.
Right.
We don't ever go in the red on those. If we don't have the money, we don't spend it. But the trips is a little high. It's quite a bit high.
But so is the revenues.
Revenues is
The
higher.
revenues is offsetting that to
Right.
make that fly, is the point that I would make
We
on it.
should probably adjust that, though.
Should be.
Yeah, we should, yeah.
I mean, it's going to match dollar
Well, it
for
would be a
dollar.
push
It is.
anyways, because if you actually increased 7,000 on
It
the
is.
revenue and expenditure, it's still
Right,
zero
but
impact. It's
it
just
is,
more
but
reflective.
It is, and it's not gonna show that we've overexpended.
Right,
But-
that's,
So I think we
that's-
need to budget it and do the revenues more realistically.
And the backside of that is the Moxie Festival. Last year it rained on the car show. And
Right.
The year before, we raised $9,500 that day for the car show. This past year it rained, we raised $2,600. Just because we had $9,500 in the budget didn't mean we spent that, we spent the 26. So that would happen, that would work that way with all those 5,600 accounts.
Short version of most of what we're just projecting here, I offer you guys the discretion, meaning you and Lydia, based on what you guys have been talking about, go right to that June meeting to be able to
And like you
make anything on the revenues.
Right, and like you say, the impact to the budget's gonna be zero if you increase both sides the same way. I'd rather increase it than have you be over budgeted on,
The expenditure side
the
is
si-
showing, right?
right. I know the revenue side's gonna show it, but we'll get a comment from the auditor, I know, won't we? If we, no?
It's just true to what you're doing for
I
operational.
just think it should be true for
It's
what
just,
we're doing.
those 5,600 accounts is such a guess.
And it is.
I don't have a crystal
Yeah.
ball.
It
and
is.
like
It's the second you're doing it, too.
rains, I mean, if it rains, we have nothing, so, but like the fitness center, the fitness classes, I should say, and, the count is reduced, well, you don't see it because it's in temp wages, but I reduced it by $8,000 this year. Because I lost Steph Dowdy as a fitness instructor, and we lost our Zumba instructor. Well, last week, I got 2 great instructors, because another place closed down on Union Street. I got both their instructors, and we're gonna build that back up, so if we're going to increase, then that would be another, program that I would like to put that $8,000 back into to pay for our instructors.
And we ought to meet and do that,
Okay.
and upgrade that, that would be.
Yeah, the thing, looking at our revenues as they relate to the budget, we're flat. We're $4,000 increase in revenues this year over everything, that's total town. That's anything that we can do to actually look at a more reasonable or realistic budget increase on that, that's gonna have an impact to the taxpayers as well too. You know, so I would afford you guys the discretion to be able to make that happen, not just in the recreation, but Mark's is the one department that revenues do cover his operational expenditures based on what he does, so. That
Good
was,
job, Mark.
appreciate that. Anything else you would like to offer?
It's not me, though, it's,
I know, it's all you and your staff and everybody else.
thank you.
Moving on.
So do you wanna start at the beginning and start with the elected officials?
Yeah,
Go
come on.
through?
Let's get rid of all of them.
Yeah, let them eat cake.
So, just to recap, all the, salary lines are 1.5% increase. It started out at a 2%, now it's down to a 1.5%. And all the benefit lines have been reduced as well because of the, wage lines. So that's consistent all the way through, unless there was a mistake in a benefit line. So starting with elected officials, the elected and appointed officials, that covers the town council and the school board.
Okay.
And the professional development is for any of the counselors that wanna go to any type of training. And I have increased that, not over this current year budget, but from prior year budgets, because we have so many new counselors, and I know that Chris mentioned he wanted to go to some classes, so I'm moving it right now. And if we end up not spending it, then I probably would reduce it in the next budget.
Good, because given our trend over the last couple of years, that was one that I did put on there. I can see it with that. I would like to make the opportunity, but I was inclined to cut it in half.
I was living there too, but I know that I took advantage of, as a
And I
new
don't
counselor
want, I don't
last
want to
year,
discourage it.
of classes with MMA, and I know that we had, and also a couple of workshops that were critical as a new counselor to kind of getting up to speed. So I think that, your discretion, Diane, if you think
Yep.
500 is too low, then we should live at 1,000, and then we'll revisit
And
it
I'm
next
inclined to
year.
revisit, but that's
Yeah.
one that,
Yeah.
same thing, advertising, postage and printing.
Advertising, we still have to advertise our public hearing for the budget, so I wouldn't touch that at all. The postage and printing, I would put those at 0. Those have not been used in a few years, and typically it's used when council wants to do a mass mailing for some type of an issue, like a bond issue or something. And I don't even know if $100 would cover it now.
I think it's being covered by somebody else, because right now we've spent nothing year-to-date, so I
No,
would agree.
we haven't, so I think we can reduce those down to 0.
Okay. I would agree to that and leave the advertising at 1,000.
Yeah.
My point being is the report I'm looking at said we still had 620 left in the account. You're taking $200 out of that in that regard. Look at this next year and address it. Go for it.
Then you go on to the town manager, if you go to line 5121, professional development, that's been consistently 2,400. I'm proposing to reduce that down to 900. I just don't have time to go to the ICMA conferences and some of these other conferences, and that's what the money was in there for.
And you already reduced from the original, the professional development and the
Yeah.
meals from the
Yeah.
first report that we got.
Right, so, yeah, the new
Right.
budget, I've already
Yeah,
reduced it.
you've already reduced those.
And I also reduced the meals and lodging. I subtracted 400 and left 100 in there. The advertising, the 5201, that's the advertising for all of our job vacancies, and we're over budget on that now because of the turnaround in different departments. Any department that doesn't have an advertising line, it comes out of this one.
Right.
So, that's over. The auditing and accounting, that is over based on the additional services we required that you approved, the 13,000 for R.H.R. Smith to do those bank recs.
Right.
And then the 5257, printing, that is for the printing of the town reports. In the last 2 or 3 years, I look back and we have not spent the 1,400. And in fact, we just got our bill, it was under 1,000, right? And bill we just got, so I propose we reduce 300 and put it at 1,100.
Cool.
The grants match, that's for any type of grants that we apply for, and we have to have a match. So far, this 5,000 has not been spent, it's not designated for anything, but I would propose moving forward that we continue to fund it, because we're gonna try to start searching for other grants for some of the departments. And I would,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but is 5,000 enough? I know that count was one time 550 grand last year. It went 55,000 down to 5, and it
But-
seems,
That's because we needed to have the grant match
For the specific-
for that program, the CDBG.
Right.
That's why, yeah. And we carried that forward, and we still have that until we finish spending our portion of it. I don't know, I don't know what there's gonna be for grants out there that we can apply for. Some grants will not have a match, some will. I propose that what we don't spend out of this to designate as, to a reserve account called grants match, so that we'll
Build it
have,
up over time.
start building it up. So I think if you continue to do the 5,000, we should be good.
So as is, just so I'm
I would
hearing
leave
that
it
right.
as is, yeah. Under the insurance, the HRA is the health reimbursement account for the employees. I looked back at last year, and we spent pretty close to it. There wasn't a whole lot left over, which is unusual. This year, I did not account for the new employees that were having the buyout, or any new employees that came on. I think we'll be safe to leave it at the 33,000. That's another account, if you wanted to, whatever's left over at year end, you could carry over into a reserve in case one year we didn't have enough, but typically on an HRA, you're not gonna spend everything that you've,
yeah, and typically on an HRA, you're just replenishing what hasn't been used by the employee, right?
exactly.
So the 33 should be the maximum, she shouldn't have
That's
to
the
spend.
maximum, unless there's employees not
Right.
included in that.
Oh,
That's a specific number of employees times.
yeah, and in that regard, it's the fact, but anything that they have at the end of the year lapses, and we're only replenishing to get back up to the 500 and 1,000 level, so you're never gonna spend the 33 out in the first year.
Right.
So that,
I think we'll be all right leaving, I wouldn't reduce it, because
Okay.
we're too close to that, but I would leave it at the 33 for now, till we see what happens for a couple more years.
I'm cool with that for this year. I had a $5,000 cut on that based on last year's history, but I'll give another year's worth of history for future dialogue.
The insurance, I still don't know yet what that's gonna come in at, so that's got a 5% increase built into it.
Well, we have a little bit clearer picture, because I noticed that there's 5% across the board for all three of those, 26, 29, and 55.
Right, that's the one, the underwriter has not come back with our increase.
Do we have any idea where they might?
I asked again today, and they're waiting. What they're doing is they're looking to see our loss runs.
Sure,
And
no.
And the year's not up, so something could happen between now and then, so they don't wanna cut themselves too short. But the increase will go between 2 and 5,
Okay.
pretty much.
Can I,
I don't think we've had that many losses that will hit the 5%, but
Can we-
it's in there as a placeholder.
But this 5% increase, is that this number reflected with that 5% rolled in?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand.
This is including the 5%.
And that's what I wanted to go ahead and verify, because
Yep.
that's the case. You're saying it's 2 to 5. I'm a bigger fan of 2, I think we all are, but at least we know that this number, if anything, is gonna
Yep.
go down from
Right.
here.
Yep.
have we paid 100% of everything we owe for this year? Or is that paid annual, monthly?
That,
Which account?
no,
Yes. Just general category, period.
we have, except for auto, we have a bill, an outstanding bill, and the auto's gonna go over because of the new equipment that we've put on.
Auto's already over.
Part of this, just like right now, this is based on our current fleet.
Mhm.
If we add to, and in fact, I may add some to the auto, because if we know we're gonna buy 2 new trucks,
Mm-hmm.
then that's gonna be an increase.
It's gonna change what we.
Yeah,
well,
even though 1 or 2 may be coming off, the newer trucks are gonna be higher because there's more value to them, so. That's the auto account.
Auto's the only one that has still balance due?
Yeah,
The reason I ask is because I'm looking at a balance in that account of $30,000 still now,
In auto?
just a general insurance category,
Of how much?
30,000.
Then that's a lot of stuff is posted. As of today, there's an unexpended balance of $7,700.
Okay, so
8,600 of it is related to HRA.
Yeah, see,
we're good then. with it. Didn't-
8,600 is close to that. I mean, that's all we have left.
If you take that 8,600 out, we're overexpended.
Okay. Well, that retracts what I was actually gonna say, because why put 5% if we didn't expend all of last year's,
Right.
is my point.
Yeah.
But if we're gonna live there and
We
have the
did,
new,
'cause-
then the 5% makes sense.
The- Remember, we went out to bid last year, so
No, I
we had
agree.
locked those in, but the auto is the only moving part, because if you change autos during the year, it's gonna
Sure.
increase. And the legal I reduced, it looks like we're going to probably settle in somewhere around 40 by year end, which is a significant decrease from what I currently have budgeted. I'm just making a note here.
Yep.
Technology and town buildings are Ryan's, and then assessing. On to assessing. Hi.
Hi,
How we doing?
all right. I had a couple accounts that I had increases in. One of them, it's line 14, account 5265. That's the registry fees. For the past 2 years, we've run short. First year, I thought it was just because of all the foreclosures, and then this year, there's been a lot more transactions, so that one, we have to increase. And then the other one was the printing, 5257. We've gone to a new style of property record cards, so I need an inventory of the stock cards. And also, I want to print new hangers that we leave on the doors when we visit a place. I'm using up the old ones now, but they really don't fit. I have to cross off a lot, because the hours are wrong and everything, so we need some new ones. And that would just be a one-time increase, 200 in that line.
Mapping, have we expended anything this year?
The maps get updated usually sometime after April, so probably the end of
Season,
May,
okay.
so that will be all used.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was seeing too, and
Yeah.
they this year dropped off.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
Yep.
Okay. And the last two I had mileage and professional development, same sort of trend based on the usage. What do you have for balance in the professional development and mileage, Lydia? That looked odd, doesn't,
Mileage, we have. I didn't see where they've expended, let me make sure I
yeah,
got the right one.
that's what I was seeing too, I just wanted to confirm.
Yep.
Is there something you're going to before year end? Because I noticed you
Yes.
spent 436 last year, which is close to your 500.
Yeah, there is the one class I'm taking next month. I think that was $100. And then the other one, probably I'll go to, won't be until next budget, because it's in August. That's the one I usually go to, property tax school. It's different. Some years, there are classes that I've already taken, or I don't like the instructor, or the timing is off. You know.
It is what it is.
Yeah, you know, and some years there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to go to. It depends too on, you know, what they do with laws, if they get rid of one program, or they add another one, or they tweak one, they usually give us a class on it, so we know, how to implement it, so.
And right now, 600 is unexpended mileage.
I'm seeing no change. Touching on the two things associated with that, leave as is. Any other questions? Thank you.
No, she can't leave.
Nope.
She needs to talk about the homestead and the Betty. Better.
Okay.
How's that budget? Other than the fact is, we're not gonna get it.
Well, the homestead, of course, that's increasing to a $20,000 exemption this year. But it's really a wash because they are increasing the reimbursement to 62.5% from 50%. Last year, we lost about $385,000 in tax revenue because of the exemption. And this year, I've calculated with the $20,000 exemption, but being reimbursed at a higher percentage, so far, it's about $376 lost in tax revenue. So it's just about the same. There's not a lot of difference. So. And then.
Wow, revenue's a $4,000 difference. It hurts.
And then the better to Betty. This doesn't make you fall asleep. I don't know what will. The better is a reimbursement program made directly to the taxpayer for the personal property he's paid. The Betty is an exemption, that they don't pay anything. And we get refunded or reimbursed from the state 50% of the taxes lost on the Betty. Well, they're proposing to merge the Better program into Betty. It passed the taxation committee by a 7-6 vote, but it still has a couple hurdles. I think it has to go to appropriations, and so who knows if it will actually, if it passes this year, it won't be implemented until next year for the 2018 tax year. And what they'll do, they're gonna phase it in over 4 years. So say if a taxpayer receives a $1,000 reimbursement currently under the Better program, that first year, when it gets merged to Bet-E, the taxpayer will get reimbursed $750. They'll exempt $250, and the town will receive the reimbursement of 50% on that $250 in tax, so.
Everybody got that?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a
right,
test
yeah,
later.
say that 5 times fast. So it will be phased in over 4 years, so it will be a little less painful. And then there are 2 bills currently. One is to do away with personal property tax completely, and the other is to make it optional for a town to either assess personal property or not, so who knows?
Kind of is now.
Yeah, I mean, it's, with the Better and Bet-E programs, I mean,
Too many programs, I think.
yeah, there are. It's, it's,
You're in or you're out.
So with this 4-year phase-in, are we going to lose revenue, or is it just coming from a different source?
well, we're going to lose,
By the 4th year, won't be getting anywhere near, we'll be getting 50% on the value versus the 100.
right. But the good news is, every time the state reimburses something, we're still paying for it. I mean, it's gonna either come out of our sales tax or income tax, so,
All comes from us.
yeah. So, I don't know where they're gonna come up with the money this year for the, homestead reimbursement, because last year, we were reimbursed $385,000, and probably this year, we're gonna get reimbursed close to $700,000. I don't know how they're gonna pay for that.
It's only a one-year gimmick, because he wants it only to be for 65 and older anyways.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to worry about that year two through whenever if he gets his way.
Stop it.
We haven't received our reimbursement yet.
To me, it's 700,000. I want it in our coffers, not his hand. We have state and federal mandates that actually play out at those higher forms of government that don't make it any easier for us to actually be able to make them fly locally.
It's not real money until it's sitting in the account.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that was open dialogue until like a month ago, and when they finally decided to keep it for the 1 year. So I'll take the positive for right now, hoping that every other community's putting as much pressure to be able to make it stay for us.
Only hope.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So, moving on to Board of Appeals, Planning Board, and Code Enforcement. And Health Officer. Did I get them all?
Yeah.
All them hacks.
Like,
Counsel?
yeah.
Short and sweet, if it can be. Code enforcement is staying flat. No changes there. Appeals is flat, no changes there. And planning board, the only thing that just come up recently, we're in the red on the professional development. They're a pretty aggressive planning board, so they've been going to the, a lot of them signing up for the annual planning day, which, you know, charge the fees and whatnot. So we bumped up over 300, so looking to increase it to 500 just to cover their, some of the classes they go to and whatnot through the course of the year. So that was a $200 increase if we go with that.
It's professional development under Planning Board.
Yep, right now it's at 300, so I just request a 500, just, I think we're in the red right now by maybe,
255.
there you go. So actually, we're already over the 500 then,
You wanted,
so,
is 500 gonna be enough?
well, it sounds like we're at
You're at-
555 now.
Right now expended, you're at 565.
What was the? I did have a new planning board member, goes to the, you know, the one-time kind of training thing, but my guess is we'll have a new planning board member next year as well, so maybe 600 or, but it's pretty close. It should be pretty well done for this year. Wasn't there a piece of that line item that was supposed to pay for something for AvCog or something else too? Yeah, AvCog workshops, MMA workshops.
Professional
No, I
services.
thought they were $5,000 extra in professional services.
No, well, no, I hadn't got to there yet. That was the one I had. The other one is, the professional services, the only other change.
Good eye, Mark.
I was getting there, you took it away from me. The other one is professional services, which had a $500 budget, adding 5,000 to that, but that's for the comprehensive plan that they're doing this year, so every 10-year update the comprehensive plan, so planning board has requested an additional $5,000 to get through the comprehensive plan work. So that's why you see that big increase there. I thought that was for iPads. If they can squeeze that in the 5,000, but that's not my call. I think they included that in it as all part of it, comprehensive plan and a possible iPad for the planning board, but there hasn't been much more discussion on it. I'm not sure where that's going. There was a larger discussion on something that might be overutilized for everybody between council, planning board. There's other options to look at as well. Paper's my friend. Having not gone through a comprehensive plan myself, I couldn't tell you how much that should cost. You know, I think we can get through it cheap myself, because I don't really see why we'd have to spend a lot of money to get through it. We do have the town planner that's under contract, and how much you can do under that contract, or additional that would cost, or if we have to have AvCog, if they charge anything for some of their services to get through the comp plan, but I really couldn't give you a gauge on how much that cost. What I'm told, 5,000 is cheap when it comes to doing a comprehensive plan, but
Yeah, I think they spent a lot more than that last time when they did the full.
I think they had
thing.
10 or so, if I remember right, during the last time, but, again, I wasn't here for that.
Thank you for putting some context around that, because that was my question. I was like, did we just pull 5 out of, and I was being snarky. I didn't think we just pulled 5 out of the sky. I figured we had to get something somewhere.
I think we kind of halved what we saw in the last one. I
Yeah.
remember it was 10, and said, geez, I kind of threw a fit, so I don't see why we have a pretty aggressive planning board, why we can't get through a lot of this ourselves, and we have been, trying to do some stuff internally and not have to hire it out. We are looking to The biggest thing is actually an entire revamp of the comprehensive plan. One of the issues we have, I feel is a big issue, is we have a comprehensive plan that's this thick and it sits on a shelf and nobody ever looks at it. If they did, they'd have to come in my office and get it, and it's never been touched and it's covered in dust. I've been kind of a proponent of revamping the comprehensive plan to be something that's more of a brochure, simplified thing showing the features of Lisbon, in regards to, pretty pictures, and somebody comes in, wants to move to the town, what brings them to the town, show them what we can offer, what we do, and then a side piece, if somebody wants all the minutia, data, all the boring stuff, here it is, but have a piece that we can hand out and use dual purpose, and I think that's the direction the planning board's heading on the new comprehensive plan right now, so. Don, Chair of the Planning Board, has a question?
Something shiny to get them into the weeds?
What's that?
Something shiny to get them into the weeds?
Well, something that, yeah, and it serves a purpose, a comprehensive plan, what are we about, what do we have to offer, something that we can actually use instead of a document that sits on a shelf and nobody touches.
Yeah, I like it.
And I think that, and we've seen some other towns that have done it, it's very, very nice, it dovetails into the website, it kinda interacts with everything, and it's, now you have a document that has a purpose. Like I said, I don't know if anybody's pulled that comprehensive plan since I've been here, but.
I have a copy at home, I've pulled out several times.
You do? There you go.
I have a copy at home, so I'm just holding the desk down.
There's a free one right there for you.
It's in Chris's chair.
All I was gonna say is the planning that we've done, or the looking we've done so far, is what other towns have done for the comprehensive plan. One of those that we followed, and Dennis kind of mentioned it, was Wyndham. And Wyndham has, although they spent a lot of money, I believe $60,000 and all that kind of thing, but what they did was try to get the comprehensive plan more readable, like you said, and it kind of goes in 4 directions, and it kind of encompasses branding for the town. So the planning board is looking at it from that standpoint, as how you get a usable document and figure out what the town is doing, just exactly what they did. Going forward, we know where we've been.
Right.
Where we're going forward, so that's what.
Any way that, I know that we received revamped branding grant, and I see Tracy, and I'm looking at her over there. Recently, for the website, is there any way to kind of tie those two together? Since we haven't already talked about that?
Planning board has discussed it
That's a
in regards
possibility.
to comprehensive plan coming first, trying to get that done, see what that does in regards to that effort, but hasn't been any real dialogue on it, so.
Okay.
They went, the town I'm thinking of went as far as, they did their plan, and they put it out on YouTube to potential videos for different plans and so forth. And the thing, when I got to them was, where do we want to go, what do we want to do, and it looked like branding to me, so, anyway.
Yeah, creating more of a brochure piece that would be approved from the state as a comprehensive plan, but not disregarding all the stuff they
Right, you
require
have to
for the
put all
data
those
and
stuff
all the boring stuff, somebody wants it, here you go, but not what you hand out and actually use, so.
From an economic standpoint, if you could get somebody who's coming, or potential coming to the town, to read that document, and then dig into it, and have it on the shelf to read, then it's a useful document, otherwise, it's not.
Sounds.
So that's the 5,000 is to get through the comp plan, that's why that big jump, but those are the only 2 items on the planning board, and they say code enforcement and appeals is, I believe, under budget on all my categories in code enforcement, and plan on staying that way, so I'm not asking for anything there, so.
Getting a new ride.
I didn't know that till today, but.
It has value, it has no sense to actually send something down the road to actually.
Whatever works for the police department, whatever, I use it to get around, and honestly, having the I didn't know what CID meant, I had to ask the chief, or ask Bill there, but it's not the blue car, which is nice, because it's very frustrating when I'm in the blue car, because everybody drives 10 miles an hour slower in front of me.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah. Or put their blinker on as soon as there's a place they can turn. I'm like, I'm not a cop. Move on, let's go.
Anything for any of the stuff that Dennis has presented, guys? Thank you.
Finance department.
I think the major change that we have is just wages with the turnover that we've experienced, but other than that, there's no surprising differences that we have.
Yeah, the retirement and the medical insurance too.
Yeah.
That's all tied.
And the only other thing would be we combined the two supplies accounts into one, other than that. Or actually three, I'm sorry.
Right. Insurance is the biggest hit, guys, associated with that, and that's just new personnel. I didn't get into you spawning this time. Move on to tax, if anybody has any questions. Go for it. Don't give them an edge. Roll. Tax.
Let me help you with that.
I can do tax if you like. No major changes there.
See?
Good job.
Except for the medical insurance.
Again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, this is a, department where we post the postage at month end. So, we just sent out reminder notices. Am I right on that, Lydia?
Yep.
Reminder notices for the, 2017 taxes and personal property taxes, because we're gonna be starting the lien process on the 17s. So there'll be a substantial amount of postage that we need to post to that.
Is this the first time under 52, 56 postage and delivery that we've outsourced tax bills? I just noticed that $500 bump for outsourcing of tax bills.
We outsourced. This is I think in the second year that we did it.
Okay, I just wanted, it's a relatively new thing to us, so, and then with postage rates going up, as my good friend Alan here just mentioned, that's what we're seeing. Okay, that's fine.
But we get the bulk rate by outsourcing.
Right.
So
Yep.
we're
Yep.
actually saving money.
Yep.
It's really not costing us very much to do that.
No, that's fine, as long as it's effective.
I see that you dialed back overtime. Can you tell us where we're at on that year to date? Both seem realistic.
In tax collecting,
Yep.
you've dialed it back?
Yeah,
No?
you did. From the original request, it went down. So,
Oh,
That's because of the COLA.
yeah. That's the
Okay.
1.5 going to, from 2 to
Where-
1.5?
what do we have expended year to date then? Same question.
Well, let me get to that. Overtime year to date, we have 200 left. We've expended 200. We have 250 left, excuse me.
Okay. I got
I
nothing.
lied, that was mileage. Sorry.
This didn't sound right.
It didn't sound right to me either, so, no, for overtime, we have spent $1350 out of the $2,500 budget, so there's about $1150 left.
That seasonal as we enter vacation season? Is that-
I believe a lot of that, and, I think last year we had a lot more lien process than we had this year. She could comment more on that.
It depends. It depends on what issues at 6 o'clock, if it's busy, and it typically is busy at 6 o'clock.
Yep.
Any of you've been in the building, and if the girls have to work after, and they do, sometimes they'll take it as comp time, sometimes we pay it out, but, it is, it depends on the customers that we're serving and what time we're serving them.
Yep.
And I don't know if this week's payroll has been posted.
No, it's still pending because
So
it hasn't, yeah.
that's gonna be reduced even more. We've spent more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last payroll that's reflected is 413.
It's not a significant amount, and it's a department that's had its issues with challenges associated with wages in general, so I'm inclined to leave it. I just
I don't think
wanted
you
to know.
should cut it. If anything, we'd wanna increase it, but I don't think there's a need to, do you?
Not
Lydia?
with what I'm seeing now.
Overtime, no.
I got nothing for the department. Town clerk?
do you wanna start?
Capital improvement.
Capital improvement. So, we noticed the greatest need in our department is for storage and putting, books into the vaults and boxes and that sort of thing. And I see that a lot of us are moving into the electronic age, although not everything can be transferred over electronically, if we wish. But I do see that if we went with this shelving unit, the high-density storage shelving unit, that it should last longer than we think it will. It'll probably last another decade or more. If we continue to progress into the electronic world, but we'll always have some paper that we have to store. We boxed up some of our council meeting file folders in order to put planning board minutes and appeals board books on shelves. But
Is that because Dawn's
we're out of
long-winded or
space.
what?
No, those are only 2 or 3 pages, you know, but you want your backup and your storage, you know, plans go in there and everything, and so, yeah, it does add up a lot.
Right.
So we're really running out of shelving for book storage, and the ideal thing about this high-density mobile storage unit is that it would have on one entire wall a place to put books. So we can design it for the type of storage we need. We could put drawers in the bottom for maps and design it the way that would work best for us. So, and it would still increase the capacity for regular boxes
Now,
as well.
where does that item sit? Your office?
The, you mean the vault?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has access on this side down the hallway and then in the clerk's office. So there's 2 doors to the vault.
Okay.
You can stop in anytime and look at it if you like. But it's getting full.
Now, going back to the January discussion, your 2 issues being steward of record retention is, this is the first piece. The second piece is what we're gonna ultimately have to do with the dry storage building, which used to be the old Lisbon Emergency Facility. Is that correct?
We're restoring election equipment and that sort of thing at Public Works. We store it in the salt shed. We did some of the signage
Right.
and that sort of stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
What is that, what is on the Lisbon Road property?
I don't have
Nothing there
anything
for
down
you?
there. I think it's just the
Catch-all of
fireworks,
catch-alls?
Public Works and fire department.
Fire truck and the sweeper, so I
Yeah.
gathered from
Mhm.
A lot of miscellaneous. Grandpa's attic.
So is it a hardship if it goes, I guess I'm asking the question.
If what
I brought it
goes?
up recently just based on a condition of the building standpoint, and I didn't want.
Don't hit us with a dangerous assessment.
Yeah, I know. The issue is a couple buildings around there I'm dealing with, and then they can point their fingers to that one and say, well, what about that one?
Put a fence.
So I approached it with Ryan and, Chief Gallipo in regards to what issues does it cause if I end up having to push the issue on that building, and they both seem to feel they have ways to figure it out. The antique truck would go somewhere else, and the sweeper, they just use that when it's not being used in the winter. You know, to put it there, but Ryan said it wouldn't be they both agreed that the building has issues. You know, they got come-alongs holding it together in places, and
Right.
roof leaking now, and so it is a building that's gonna have to be addressed in the near future and what we do with it. As far as tearing it down or what, but yeah, that's all I was aware of is antique fire truck and sweeper.
Thank you. In that regard, it was just remembering that from the January timeframe is that storage was an issue, and if we can revisit that and not have to worry about the stuff that we're actually storing, it makes it a little bit easier to get my head around this topic.
There's a lot of them right there, at the back.
If you ever get a chance to stop out to Green, they use the same high-density storage there in the town of Green, so it's working out really well there.
They already have those.
Oh, you do have these? All right.
Thank you, though. I know there's one right in the back of your section.
Why don't you take another look at it?
You don't have to convince me.
I really think that it's a good system, and it'll probably last for a good long time here. It'll probably be the last improvement you need to make to your vault. That's my guess.
That's
10
one of those items.
On the list?
No,
It
I
is
would
on the list.
I would slide that to the fund balance commitment, take it off the budget.
Yeah.
That's
the
my
best thing we can do
recommendation.
right there. It is exactly what the state of Maine is doing at the archive level. They're going to put high-density storage shelving unit in the basement, the first floor there as well.
So this would cover the next 10 years.
Oh, at least, yeah.
No longer than that.
I heard
As
forever.
we
She
move
said
into,
forever.
I
That's a short
know.
time in my view.
You're moving into that electronic age, you know, where I think a little less of it's coming in. But we still have to deal with what we have and the small portions that are gonna get added to it. Some things just remain in paper copy. We probably should.
Probably doesn't ask for much.
So that's
That-
what I have.
That was the only item, I just wanted you to be able to speak on that, and I think it's better placed in the fund balance. I had nothing else
Mhm.
in anything in the department.
When the time comes, maybe we could look, look for other quotes as well to see if the price can be reduced, but that was, one estimate from a good
Right.
supplier.
Well, when we go to the purchase point, you'll have to make the procurement anyways, but you got them on the list for the source.
Hey, you got 21 standard colors available before the upcharge kicks in, so you're good to go there.
This guy we've been working with too, this exact same company, we've worked with him for 30 years. So it's kind of interesting that he's still around and the company's, they've grown and they've been bought out by another place, but,
He's still the
our
face of the
contact's still
organization.
there.
Since this is a one-time, are we talking general fund again?
Yeah.
Yeah, fund balance.
Yeah.
That's the general fund.
It's all good.
Fund balance.
Any other questions with Twilight? Moving on.
Economic.
Do you wanna, did you wanna do the budget itself, clerk budget? Or,
You anything you'd like to highlight? We had no questions.
you didn't have a question, oh, okay,
There
no,
was-
I'm good.
Yeah, she's like, close the cover quickly. Run away, run away.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I thought you were hitting that softball well.
Close cover, run away, run away.
Last one. Thank you.
The last one.
I'm right here.
Questions of Tracy, guys?
One of the things I would like to point out to council is the economic and community development budget for the past 6 years has been through the Dingley TIF. That will retire FY '18. So this will be going into the last budget year for that department.
So next year, we're gonna have to budget for your department. but we
If
should
you
also
wanna
get the-
keep me around.
Right, we should also get the revenue that we were losing to the TIF, so it could actually be an increase overall.
The TIF for the Dingley has been a 25-year TIF, and, you can do TIFs for 30 years, but we're also doing some of the TIFs on the other things, so we're able to start capturing some of that to help fund other programs as well, so.
That's a key soundbite going back to the Kelly Park TIF, where in that regard, we did not set that one to actually go like Dingley. This is specifically earmarked for infrastructure in that immediate area as Tracy identified for that plan. So you will see, if we continue with that trend, this going on, just like in any other department, to be able to have to go from the general fund taxation to be able to fund that department. Any items on this specifically? Talked about a playground. I'm gonna float the lead balloon associated with the 2,500 for the Moxie increase. We're gonna vet one and the second one.
I did, and again, as we look at, even with what we're coming in with the Moxie Festival, I don't foresee, if that's something that council wants to cut from there, we can, and we can just shift that over to the festival paying for that extra. But the key was having
It's intended was fireworks.
Yes.
Quite specifically, right?
That is correct.
Additional 2,500 for
Yep.
fireworks.
So I put in the additional 2,500 to go, so there'll be $5,000 that will pay for fireworks, so this town will have better quality fireworks.
It's the number one complaint we get.
Fireworks?
You know, it takes half an hour to get out of there after the fireworks, but the show is
Last
10
year,
minutes.
people were beyond mad. Because they started and they were done. People didn't even get to their destination and they were done.
$2,500 does not go a long ways when it comes to fireworks.
It literally went up in smoke.
Yeah, I watched it from my backyard and it was about 10 minutes.
Not even, I don't think. I think I timed it, I think it was like 8.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the festival hasn't even started. If you're pissed off on a Friday night, really, you're setting yourself up for hardship for the entire flipping weekend. But that's just my personal opinion.
Okay, you're volunteering this year because then you can deal with it.
No, but
Uh,
I'll
yeah,
take
yeah, yeah.
complaints. They're filed in the order that they were received. No, point being is, that was what the intention was with the line item, just
That is
for the discussion.
Need a fundraiser for more fireworks?
There we go.
Yeah.
Are you gonna man it?
My plate's pretty full. Dorothy?
They used to put out donation jars in various businesses and so forth for fireworks. Just a thought.
Pay for parking at the high school, you know, like, have a good premier parking, you know, have some tiers in parking.
There we go.
Seems like a lot of angles.
Yeah.
Should be a workshop.
Well, again, what it. I can tell you when it gets down to trying to do,
We're having that workshop.
charge
against
and
the law,
parking,
so it's
then
fine.
it's who's gonna man it?
That's
And
exactly my
We
point.
have no
Are you
volunteers,
volunteering?
so we have nobody that can man it. Some of the other festivals, when you go to other festivals and they do paid parking, those are usually nonprofit groups like the school sports boosters, or whether it may be a class or whatever. They will man the parking lot with their parents and they take in, that's their fundraiser to be able to do that. So none of that, you know, comes back into
Well, you
the
just gave them a
festival,
good
so.
idea.
But parking isn't, we have no parking, so I mean, I wouldn't even go down that route, is because people are, you know, we try to get people to park down this end and run the shuttle. The church allows, you know, people to park on their property, and then we run the shuttle from there, but parking is
One-year
definitely
deal
difficult.
on illegally parking everybody on Miller's property.
No. Mrs. Miller has always been very kind. The gated area we've
Good money
used
maker.
for vendors to be able to park, and we've been able to do that, so.
On that vacant spot? Your people? You said
My-
there are no people, so all three of you?
No, I'm saying,
How
my
many people-
vendors,
How many vehicles you bringing?
well, they can't park in the street.
Hey, my question about that 2,500, this is just me kind of going for an alternate source. What about the revenue from Moxie?
I mean, that's why I said it can be. I mean, we've got, and that's gonna be the other thing, in trying to talk with council, because we had discussed in regards my time and doing, with the Moxie and all of the other things that I've got juggling right now in my office. I have reached out to Kaplan University, and I'm trying to get an intern that will come in and not just assist me, but other departments that needs assistance, whether it be Kathy and in the finance office, because Kaplan picks up that tab as far as to be able to do that. So if we can get an intern from the college to be able to come in, that would be great. I would be looking for a business major, you know, that can kind of help within their education as well, but will also help the departments that are in need for some extra hands. If not, then I will be asking council to take some of the Moxie fund and, you know, look into hiring, whether through a temp agency. Temp agencies, they're a little bit pricey because they're about $20 an hour. The worker doesn't get that because it goes to the agency and pay that fee. But, you know, someone part-time coming in, for especially during May and June, that I can set up and doing some of the PR stuff, doing some of the website, you know, the vendors' forms are all gonna start coming in, so all that cash is gonna start flowing in. So there are some funds in that account to be able to do that. But then I also have to do some purchasing
for the festival itself. They need tents, they're looking at, they wanna purchase a banner, and that was the whole idea since I came on board, was really for them to build up that account. So that gave them the flexibility to purchase the signage and to purchase all of the things that they need to do that makes the festival the event that it is. And this year, you know, for the 35th anniversary this year, and for the theme, I mean, we've reached out to all of the military organizations, and we're just really bringing in a lot of people. Travis Mills is going to be the Grand Marshal for the event, so we're really looking for a much larger event. And of course, you know, you're going to have the Moxie Building is hopefully everything's going there strong, so that
No, hopefully.
That
You
will be
obviously do
open.
not tone Tony. Building
that will be open.
Hey, going back to the staffing piece for a minute, just so it doesn't get too far back. I know you talked about temp agency and the challenges. What about, I know we had talked about the rec department staff and the fact that they're gonna seasonally ramp up.
I had spoke to Mark about that, and he said that he can't. I mean, he's got staff that he's even.
The problem we have with the seasonal staff is the ACA requirement.
the
We can only
hours.
work them so many hours,
Mhm.
so that's what our issue is.
My thought was, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have a large seasonal staff with the rec department, correct? It's a pretty significant, I think if I remember correctly, we were talking about how the increase in minimum wage is gonna have, that was the biggest part of his budget when he sat in here with us. It's a pretty significant number of seasonal staff members. Am I wrong on that? If we have a large
don't
number,
think
then it
they're-
shouldn't matter how many, if we can only work them X number of hours, as long as we're spreading it out over that period, we have a whole untapped resource. That's just me talking out loud. If you guys have already talked about it and you don't think there's something there that can be done,
I just think a lot of those seasonal people are people that are like, you know, a coach for something, and they're not really a, you know, general laborer you can just reassign to something.
Well, I'm
They're
talking,
minors.
stuffing envelopes was one of the duties that came to my mind when you were talking about that. We're not talking about the really heavy lifting portion of the Moxie duties.
But the stuffing of envelopes already happened in February.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
well,
So
And
that's
that's,
not when we
we're
have the
beyond that point. You know, I'm
need now,
in
then?
as far as where somebody can, you know, when the applications come in for vendors, sorting that out, and then, you know, data entry in them as far as all of the checks.
Sending them
I
all
need
my
somebody
way.
that can work with a newspaper, because we do everything goes into the newspaper where they do a special tab, you know. I need somebody that can do PR stuff. I need somebody that can go and make the edits and changes to the website. I need somebody that can help, you know, that has that marketing background, that can help me, so I'm not having to spend my time and doing all the design stuff
Right.
and everything, you know, for posters and things like that. So that's really,
More vendors.
you know, that's kind of, you know, answer those questions that kind of come in, you know, all the time on things. Because what I'm seeing now is, as we're gearing up going into next month, it's going to be coming into the month of May, where that's when I'll be coming in and staying in the evening and coming in on the weekends. And I've done a few of those, you know, but I just want everything to be able to flow, you know, and I can't miss a beat, you know. Right now, it's with the grants. I mean, I gotta keep that going. I've got bids out now for the grants. That's due Thursday, so I've gotta go through that process. I'm gearing up, meeting tomorrow on the Brownfield, so, you know, we're gonna be looking at starting to do projects within the Brownfields grant. And then, of course, our downtown grant, so, you know, it's crazy.
No.
It's a good crazy, you know, as
Yeah,
far as,
yeah.
you know, there's a lot going on in the community, so, you know,
Moxie
it's
can
definitely great.
Well, I think we have to work harder, to work smarter on that and find ways to get more resources before we get into the 90 days out and we're in the thick of it, because like you said, your primary economic development role is never ending, and it's always gonna have that, and it's only ramping up with all the things going on. So how do we get you the time that you need so you can be more of an overseer of the event and shepherding it along when it stalls versus being the primary go-to for all of this stuff? And I'm sure that that's something you would welcome as well.
I know at one point we talked about having a coordinator. I don't know. Is there any?
Well, when you had asked me in that in regards to what some of the other communities do, and the other communities, it's all run through the Chamber of Commerce, their events, or they also are Main Street downtowns, and they have a Main Street coordinator. And again, that's totally separate from the town. And that's why a lot of these places are able to do a lot of events, because they pulled it away from the municipality and it goes to another organization that is doing them all for them.
You do a Moxie Wrap every year, right? Moxie Wrap, yeah.
They do.
Yep. So maybe in this year's Moxie Wrap, we talk about what it would look like to fund a coordinator's position for next year out of revenue. To try to understand. I mean, I think the only way to stop this is by actually trying to toy with some ideas of ways to say, what did we do for revenue and what would it cost realistically? Because we don't have an example or a model that we could look at, because there's only
Right.
chambers, or, so how do we, if we're gonna have to build a mousetrap, build a better mousetrap, let's start thinking about that and actually materializing what it might look like.
When you say revenue, are you saying Moxie revenue strictly or revenue in general?
I say Moxie revenue, and I say that it's hard for me to say, and this is just mine, feel free to chime in, anybody, but it's hard for me to say that should be taxpayer dollars paying for that coordinator position if the Moxie revenue, if the Moxie Festival is indeed creating revenue, then that should be the first place we would look to fund.
But it's not always guaranteed on the revenue.
Oh, I agree.
You know,
I
and
understand.
again, you know, it's the same thing, because when I came on board, it was, the committee had zero. I mean, they were just, how are we gonna pay for this? I said, you can't operate that way. You gotta operate where you have a zero balance, and you gotta raise the revenues to pay for. So, within the committee itself, they are not allowed to, spend anything unless they know they have the revenue to cover that cost. That's how I kind of have gone through that with them. And the idea of it is that, okay, here is our, if you say rainy day fund, so for, you know, this year, they want to purchase a nice tent and have it Moxie Festival label on who they are. It's the idea that this group has worked so hard, even though there's a few of them, really want this to be professional. I mean, when you have people from the outside the community that are coming in from Florida, they're coming in from North Dakota, Maryland, or Pennsylvania, or, I mean, I get emails from England, you know, coming down from Canada for this event. You know, it's huge. So again, it kind of all ties into what it is we're trying to do within the community, what it is that we want people to see when they come into the community, and that's why it's so important with what the work is going on with the Route 196 and the new businesses coming in and the facade grants, and all of those are just going to tie into and the change. Just the change this year in the Moxie building is going to be huge for people coming downtown, and I mean, you know, I expect they're going to do very, very well. You know, and the people are going to look forward to that. So to be able to announce that, yes, they're going to come in, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great asset, you know, during that time, and not just that time, but even continuing on. So the committee itself, from where we are now, is wanting to bring the festival itself up to a different level, and make it, you know, so it's a festival that's recognized. It's a festival that can be compatible to that of the Clam Festival, or be compatible to the Blues Festival, you know, in Rockland. And it is that way, is because it's grown nationality, and I mean, it's always in different articles in magazines and different things. So when something comes through, you know, I try to put that out to people. So it's making sure that those costs always get covered, is because the last thing that I ever would want the committee to have to do, or myself, is stand up before council and say, I apologize, but I've got to stand before you, is that the Moxie Festival is in the red for.
Oh, no, I think I hear exactly what you're saying. I think where I'm coming from on this is to take that step that you're talking about. I think we've been doing it this way, that we've been doing it, and this is not to disparage or take away from, detract from the countless people, or the few people that have given countless hours consistently over and over again. It's about, in order to take that next step, sometimes it's about taking a different approach. And right now, the approach that we have, while it gets it done, we visualize some great gains, and we have some great developments going on that could help us make some large gains. I think we need to be able to look at having someone whose sole focus is to be in the day-to-day ops of the Moxie and driving that thing, which is something that it's fallen to your office to do so, but you have many hats that you're already wearing, and we thought that we could do it with volunteer base. Now we have a small volunteer base, and it's not materializing the way we'd hoped. So now we have to talk about different approaches. And all I say with the wrap party is, when you're doing that this year, talk about what that would look like, because we don't have a comparable. like you said, that we only have a Chamber of Commerce, that runs others, or we have a Main Street Committee in other communities that would do that. So I just think it's worth investigating. It's not saying run down the road blindly or aimlessly, and I hear what you're saying about how you fund. We don't spend it if we don't have it. It's a fantastic philosophy to run with, but at the same time, we have to look at a different way to do it, because it's only gonna help us to expand upon and get it to raise up to the same level. I think it's already at the same level as the Clam Festival or as the Blues Festival, but how do we separate it from those and make it more so one of the more standout festivals people want to come to every year?
Well, the only issue that I think you're gonna run into is that we don't have the funds to support a coordinator and to be able to put the festival on as we have been.
Well, I think I think that's fair, but I don't think we know what a coordinator would look like until we actually kind of figure out what a revenue stream looks like, and then from there, we don't have a comparable. I mean, I don't know of any coordinator for a festival and a salary associated with that, so I think we just trying to, if nothing else, do some fact finding and say, what's the closest thing to what we do, and what's that coordinator, is there a salary associated with that, what does that person make, who do they use, then start to look at those.
You're also looking at that this is, somebody who's in a coordinator is gonna wanna be there from the start to the finish. And this is something that we meet the very next week after Moxie, and we are multiple meetings throughout all year round, and then as we get closer, it sometimes turns into 1, 2, 3 meetings.
It
So,
will be.
and
no
then
doubt in my
on
mind.
top of all the work that they're gonna be doing, I think you're looking at a part-time position all year round.
Well,
Easy.
If that's the
Easy.
case, who better but the folks who are in it every day to get that? So that's all the more reason at that Moxie Rap meeting to start saying, if it's a part-time all year round position, how would we fund it, what would it look like, and what do we look for comparables to try to get an idea?
To kind of branch out on what you just said, Lisbon, coming from the outside this past year, one thing that has really stuck out to me, Lisbon is really at the cusp where you're not Lisbon, I mean, you're not Lewiston, you're not Wales.
Say so on the back of the sign.
Right. That being said, you know, departments have plans, people want things of these grand scales that everybody wants. Just can't do it with the staff that's there. That's the line that I'm seeing all departments walk, not just Moxie.
Oh, no.
All of them. You're at that cusp where it's really hard to take that next step, and you can't take that next step without. So it's tough.
But to bring it back around with what we were discussing on this end of the table, back to if Dingley's TIF actually goes away after this year, there are no additional funds. We are going to have to look at what goes through our economic development department, because it's gonna be just like any other that's on taxation. So this discussion associated with the Moxie Festival and its future may have to actually be a necessity, because it's probably not gonna be buried in this department. It's gonna be right out there that this is what's driving that cost, so we can start focusing on those costs. Likewise, we have the opportunity to extend this TIF arrangement with Dingley, and it's up to at least to 5 years. We need to at least get our head around what's involved with that. So Diane's already made a note to hit you up on that, to be able to make sure that that keeps it on our radar. So,
When would we have to start that process if we were going to?
Well, we'd have to go through the amendment process all over again, and it depends at the state level where they are at, because they've switched over and they've got new people. So they're up against the new TIFs coming in that have the end of March deadline, meeting that April 1 that everybody wants to get in on, is because that's when you're basically gonna start getting those funds. For doing the Kelly Park, for doing the amendment of the Kelly Park, I was told that won't even be looked at until July, because all of those other tests would come before that. But again, that was with the former person, so it'd be a matter of reaching out to Tina, and I can say to her, look, here's what I'm up against, are you gonna be able to work with me? Because of it retiring for next year, everything has to be in before basically March.
next year?
Yes, 2018.
Okay. That's fine. Point
hit
being
that.
is keeping it on the radar screen, because when we come through this process next year budget, if it doesn't come to fruition, it's gonna be on the tax base, and
That is
that's a
correct.
bigger, that's $100,000 increase to the taxes.
Right, but you're also getting the revenues back from the side that Dingley keeps right now. They keep 50% of the tax revenues.
And that's the trade-off.
Right.
It's right back to the square one with Kelly, absolutely.
You know, not necessarily, because when it retires, when they've reached their, and I've got to work with Lydia, because we've got to find out as far as the term, their credit enhancement is for 20 years.
Okay.
So when that 20 years is done, that's it.
Right.
So if council decides, so again, we'd have to check as far as when their year started, that they started receiving that, because it may go beyond that. We have to fulfill our obligation, but once that obligation is fulfilled, that's it. That stops at that. So if council
100%
decides,
us.
we could do that, or if we could do 50% goes into the department and 50% goes into the revenues as far as the tax base, the commitment, so.
Yeah,
That's
makes
an
sense.
option.
Anything that's not sheltered, again, you actually pay more for county, and you
That is
lose
correct.
it on the revenue sharing, and
That
you
is
pay more
correct.
for school.
Yes.
So you're
Lose.
getting closer
Yeah.
to 60 or 70% on the dollar instead of 100%.
That is correct.
Yes, Doc?
I know a top-notch professional event coordinator, my oldest daughter. I don't know how many of you remember in Portland some years ago, Bop Sale, when they had all of the sailing ships come from all over the world. My daughter coordinated all of that. She used to work for Cole Haan, the shoe company in Yarmouth, and she organized all of their spring and fall shows in Las Vegas and everywhere. I mentioned some time ago about the Moxie Festival. She and her husband own an insurance company in Portland now. She works full-time. I don't know if she'd be interested or not. I don't know what she'd charge. I don't know.
Well, as we move
I'll tell
forward
you, if
associated with
you
that,
wouldn't find anyone better.
she would be definitely included in that to be able to be considered when we move forward, Doc.
She lives in Falmouth with her
Perfect.
husband.
Anything else for Tracy?
Mark's still looking. He's gonna find something up.
There's a lot of left turns in that one. Some of them we actually took care of before to get here, but it will complicate.
I do have one question. What's the increase in meals and lodging from 250 to 500?
That, because I'm trying to put the levels to where they need to be.
Okay.
So I'm not in the hole, you know,
Oh,
even though
yes,
I don't
yeah.
ever go over the end of it, I'm just trying to make up. And because of being part of the
Okay, right, yeah,
NEDA
that's
Board
right.
of Directors,
That makes sense.
I've
Yeah,
had to
travel
calculate.
more, yeah.
I'm traveling a lot more because I have actually 3 economic development organizations that I'm board of directors of, so
Makes sense.
I'm doing a lot.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're very welcome.
Have one more thing to add. Dennis, you might be able to help me out with this. This is the tree in front of the Moxie building is in the way for them doing some work on the Moxie building, and did it get trimmed today?
I don't know, Ryan mentioned go ahead, but I
Yeah.
didn't think it was comfortable to have our guys do it. So I didn't give the instructions to do it.
Okay,
But it's quite overgrown. If you look at when it blooms, it's actually touching, hitting the building, and there's new awnings going on, kind of recreate the old awnings on the front. It's gonna be in the way of the awnings too, so a couple different options. You can take it down, plant another one, which, you know, they go ahead and plant one if you wanted something smaller that can take time to grow, or not sure what the best option is, but to work on the building there, you gotta rebuild those bay windows and stuff, and it's kinda right in the way, but
so my question is, do you have any objection if the tree is removed?
Chop it down.
Take it down.
Such a pretty tree. Replant it.
Well, I'll plant a tree in a different
I
space.
don't have a good track record, it'd already be gone.
Yeah.
yeah, I know we would have.
If you don't have an objection, then we'll.
Forgiveness,
figure out what we're
permission,
gonna do.
whoops.
Last time you guys made me vote on killing
No,
geese, now you're
that's a
vote on
true
chopping down
story. When he
trees.
and I are actually giving testimony for something that goes to court, I don't have a good track record.
We're gonna have a vote about burning some tires and maybe doing some hairspray while we're at it too, out into the ozone, you know?
Aquanet?
We
No,
live
the idea is they can limb one side, but it's gonna look kinda funny, cause
Chop it down.
it's gonna be one branch hanging.
Tree
Chop it
goes.
down, chop it down.
Tree goes.
Chop it down. Chop it down.
Tree
Frank
goes.
waited and it's gone.
You won't even know it was there. Chop it down.
Viva-
Branch is gonna look so nice, chop it down.
Viva la progress.
Chop it down. Chop it down.
Chop it down. And the motto for
Wait,
tonight.
I'll make a motion.
Are they,
Second.
are we making them replace?
We are not making, Dennis,
We are not making them replace.
we're not making Dennis replace a tree. If they don't need a bush there, you don't need a tree there, it's just gonna be in the way, da 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 da.
I'll tell you, one of the options we were looking at Riverside doing a nice, piece in place of the tree, but we've had, there's the Main Street meeting, apparently they're confiscating, putting a big out front because it's vandalized constantly, so we're a little leery on putting a nice totem pole type signature piece showing like the Rumble Indian, Moxie cans, different things, kind of a feature piece out front there. People take pictures in front of it and whatnot, but we're a little worried based on what we're hearing about vandalism down there.
Better off to put it in Frank's,
So, right.
in the corner somewhere, like a nice
Old,
tree.
Cigar Indian.
Yeah,
cheers,
absolutely,
something like
absolutely.
that, right?
Tree
what
goes,
about-
no replacement.
What about the, hang on here for a second, what about the guy who does the carvings? The-
No, that's at Riverside. that's what I
Yeah,
said.
yeah, why couldn't he just come
Craig.
down there and make something, yeah, but if he did.
Carve
they-
that
You
one.
know what would
about
be
it?
really
No, no, no,
cool?
no, what I'm talking about.
Doing it.
No, you know what would be really cool? Where you take out
Exactly,
that
right.
tree, you know how like in
I'm leaving.
Hollywood.
Carve
Hollywood-
it into the tree stump.
No, like.
We have a
no,
motion
or
on the
you
floor.
could Put like a.
While she rambles.
Okay.
Motion to end this.
Yeah, like
Make a motion.
Hollywood.
Second.
Boulevard.
All in
Anyone
favor?
else?
Okay.
That's cool.
We're all out.
See?
Balls
There,
walk of fame.
now we can talk about. No,
Yes,
I
I
knew
think
you guys
that
were
would be
talking about.
awesome.
It
And
would,
there
it
we
would be
go.
awesome.
That's good.
Steelers logo right in the middle of it.
No, you can no.
Replace
I
it.
saw the hand go up.
Leave the tree there.
Don't be afraid to put your chair back where it came from.
Don't touch that tree.
Don't be afraid to put your chair
No, but how
back.
cool would that be to have like a little star there for like Frank?
I know you will.
Like
I think
Hollywood
we're all here
Boulevard.
right
I don't
now.
care what goes there, I think it'd be a great idea to do it.
Those were
But the whole
chairs
vandalism,
I said it.
Don't be afraid to take your
My chair got
There you go.
switched.
No, really?
Yes, it was that culprit.